The Snow Queen in 7 parts by Hans Christian Andersen. Here we meet for the 6th story, The Lapland Woman and the Finland Woman. At a little hut they stopped. It was very humble. The roof sloped down almost to the ground, and the door was so low that the family had to creep on their stomachs when they wanted to go in or out. No one was in the home but an old Lapland woman cooking fish by the light of a train oil lamp. And the reindeer told Gerda's whole history, but it related its own first, for this seemed to the reindeer more important of the two. Gerda was so exhausted by the cold that she could not speak. "Oh, you poor things," said the Lapland woman. "You've come a long way to run yet. You must go more than 100 miles to Finnmark, for the Snow Queen is there, staying in the country, and burning Bengal lights every night. I'll write a few words on a dried cod, for I have no paper, and I'll give you a letter that is to the Finland woman. She can give you better information than I." And when Gerda had been warmed and refreshed with food and drink, the Lapland woman wrote a few words on a dried codfish, and telling Gerda to take care of these, tied her again on the reindeer, and the reindeer sprang away. Flash! Flash! It went high in the air. The whole night the most beautiful northern lights were burning blue. And then they got to Finnmark, and knocked on the chimney of the Finland woman, for she had not even a hut. There was such a heat in the chimney that the woman herself went about almost naked. She at once loosened little Gerda's dress and took off the child's mufflers and boots, otherwise it would have been too hot for her to bear. Then she laid a piece of ice on the reindeer's head and read what was written on the codfish. She read it 3 times, and when she knew it by heart, she popped the fish into the soup cauldron, for it was eatable, and she never wasted anything. Now the reindeer told first his own history, and then little Gerda's, and the Finland woman blinked with her clever eyes, but said nothing. "You are very clever," said the reindeer. "I know you can tie all the winds in the world together with a bit of twine. If the seaman unties one knot, he has a good wind. If he loosens the second, it blows hard. But if he unties the third and fourth, there comes such a tempest, the forests are thrown down. Won't you give the little girl a draught, so she might get 12 men's power and overcome the Snow Queen?" 12 men's power, repeated the Finland woman. "Great use that would be." And she went to bed and brought out a great roll-up fur, unrolled it. Wonderful characters were written upon it, and the Finland woman read until the water ran down over her forehead. But the reindeer again begged so hard for little Gerda, and Gerda looked at the Finland woman with such beseeching eyes full of tears, that she began to blink again with her own, and drew the reindeer into a corner, and whispered to him while she laid fresh ice upon his head. "Little Kay is certainly at the Sea Queen's, and finds everything there to his taste and liking, and thinks it is the best place in the world. But that is because he has a splinter of glass in his eye, and a little fragment in his heart. But those must be got out, or he will never be a human being again, and the Sea Queen will keep her power over him. But can you not give something to little Gerda, so as to give her power over all of this?" "I can give her no greater power than she already possesses. Don't you see how great that is? Don't you see how men and animals are obliged to serve her, and how she gets on so well in the world with her naked feet? She cannot receive her power from us. It consists in this, that she is a dear innocent child. If she herself cannot penetrate to the Snow Queen and get the glass out of little Kay, we can be of no use. 2 miles from here is the Snow Queen's garden begins, You can carry the little girl thither. Set her down by the great bush that stands with red berries in the snow. Don't stand gossiping, but make haste and get back here." And then the Finland woman lifted little Gerda on the reindeer, which ran fast as it could. "Oh, I haven't my boots! I haven't my mufflers!" cried Gerda. She soon noticed that in the cutting cold, but the reindeer dared not stop. It ran till it came to the bush with the red berries. There it set Gerda down and kissed her on the mouth, and great bright tears ran over the creature's cheeks, and then it ran back as fast as it could. There stood poor Gerda, without shoes, without gloves, in the midst of the terrible cold Finnmark. She ran forward as fast as possible. Then came a whole regiment of snowflakes, but they did not fall down from the sky, for that was quite bright and shone with the northern light. The snowflakes ran along the ground, and the nearer they came, the larger they grew. Gerda still remembered how large and beautiful the snowflakes had appeared when she looked at them through the burning glass. But here they were certainly far longer and much more terrible. They were alive. They were the advanced posts of the Snow Queen, and had the strangest shapes. A few looked like ugly great porcupines, others like knots formed of snakes, which stretched forth their heads, and others like little fat bears whose hair stood on end. All were brilliantly white. All were living snowflakes. Then little Gerda said her prayer, and the cold was so great that she could see her own breath, which went forth out of her mouth like smoke. The breath became thicker and thicker, and formed itself into little angels, who grew and grew whenever they touched the earth. And all had helmets on their heads, and shields and spears in their hands. Their number increased more and more, and when Gerda had finished her prayer, a whole legion stood round her, and struck with their spears at the terrible snowflakes, so that these were shattered into 1,000 pieces. And little Gerda could go forward afresh, with good courage. The angels stroked her hands and feet, and then she felt less how cold it was, and hastened on to the Snow Queen's palace. But now we must see what Kay was doing. He certainly was not thinking of little Gerda, and least of all, that she was standing in front of the palace. Thus ends the 6th story of The Snow Queen by Hans Christian Andersen. We will meet again for the 7th and final story of The Snow Queen.